G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, this is another voiceover moto vlog, so to speak. And today's subject is about hand signals, or arm signals, however you want to look at it, while you're on a motorcycle. Should you do them? Is there a point to them? That type of thing. Here's my take on it, okay? Again, I always tell you guys kind of what experience I have. And basically, I'm going to tell you about some of the bikes I've owned. So, yes, I've got probably over 130,000 miles on the road over the years, and I've just got back into it, this year, so to speak. Took the course last year, and I'm back into it again this year. And first time riding really in 20 years. So you might as well say I'm a noob again. But some of the old, like that saying goes, you can't teach an old dog new tricks type of thing. Well, some of the motorcycles I owned years ago were things like, for example, I started off on dirt bikes and stuff like that, which had no signals whatsoever. And I also started out on the street with a Kawasaki LTD 440, which had signals. And even when I had that bike, I started doing arm signals in the traffic because of my realization. Your signals are lower than the line of sight for most people, and if somebody's close to your bumper, sometimes they basically they're not looking down enough. They don't see the signals, even if they're big OEM, 3-inch round circles. They still don't see them. And also too, at different times of the day, especially around that time of the day when the sun's on the horizon. There's certain streets I would go down, and it was just like I would avoid it like the plague, because you're heading right into the sun, and if you couldn't see, the guy behind you can't see. And it was just like you're going into like a crimson horizon, and it's completely blinding. And you're not going to see a little blinker when that happens, but you might see the silhouette of the rider. So I started doing arm signals, and they just kind of stuck. And then after that, I had my 1972 BMW R60, which also had big blocky, 3-4 inch signal lights on it. But same thing again. The motorcycle's sitting lower than most drivers' heads, so they don't. Sometimes even if they see it, they don't compute on a really sunny day. Sometimes it just doesn't. It takes a second for them to acknowledge it. But if they see the rider doing something sporadic, and you have to factor in this too, and I noticed this the other day when I was out riding, I did put on my signal light, and then I signaled to go right, so I held my arm in the air in an L shape, going basically straight up, and the lady driving towards me didn't really know what was going on, so to speak, so she just kind of waved at me, figured that I was just doing a weird wave towards her or something like that. Innocent enough. But again, people who don't ride motorcycles or pedal bikes or like that, they probably have no knowledge of how to do hand signals. But I'm not worried about that, because it caught her attention that I was doing something, and that meant at least she was acknowledging that I was doing something. Maybe not, which would maybe just draw enough attention that while she was looking at me, she might then see my blinker, flashing away, and then maybe connection. Oh, I get it. This guy's turning right, whatever. And there was no incident. It was just an observation that when the lady went by, the way she waved back at me with a kind of a confused look on her face, because I guess she figured I was just doing a strange wave or something. The one most people get is if you want to turn left, you hold your arm out straight to the left. You want to turn right, you bend your elbow and you bring your hand high to the right. So it looks like you're flexing your muscles, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type of thing, with your hand up in the air, and so you're turning right. But some people forget what stop means, and it's the same as turning right, but now you just put your hand down towards the ground instead of to the sky, and now it's like an L but upside down. And a lot of people don't get that one, but I use that one a lot, because I don't like to brake check people, and here's why. There's two things: the threshold of the brake check, and the second one is it pisses people off. Meaning, when somebody's behind you, and yes, they're tailgating you, and they shouldn't be tailgating you, and yes, it's their fault, but you can't look at it like that when you're on two wheels. You have to look at it as, if he hits me, I'm the one who gets hurt. You know what I mean? So you got to compensate for them. Whether you're in the right or the wrong is not really relevant here. This is about making a decision to be safe. So long, if I have somebody that's kind of tailgating me, I can brake check them and just kind of touch my tail light just enough to bring the lamp on and not enough to engage the brakes. But sometimes that threshold is a very fine one. Particularly on this bike, the brakes seem to be, the back brake seems to come on pretty easy on this bike. So it means I start stopping right away. You know, the lamp comes on and I'm already on the brake. So it's kind of every bike is different. And like for example, on my 1948 Harley Davidson Panhead, which had no signal lights on it whatsoever, that one I had to do hand signals all the time. But when I'd go to stop, I mean, I could probably push the brake lever, the back brake lever, about probably halfway before the brake would engage, because it was a mechanical brake and you could really feel it and everything like that through the pedal. So you could brake check people that way and they would slow them down, back them off a bit. But sometimes it just seems it's like a matador. I call it the matador syndrome. When people see red, they get mad and they start to speed up more. But what I find is when I put my arm out to stop, just before I signal or start stopping, people start to back off. They see it as a back off sign rather than a stopping sign, and they see it as kind of you know, not as an aggressive kind of like, hey, I'm going to brake check you, make you jam your brakes on. It's kind of, oh, okay, this guy must be wanting to stop or something like that, and they back off. And I do this early, long before I even touch the brakes. So by the time I'm on my brakes and my signals are on, or if I'm going straight or just coming to a stop, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. By that time, I can see in my mirror the guy behind me starting to already back off, and I can do this early. That's the nice thing about it, is like you're giving them the heads up that you are going to be stopping up ahead or doing something. In other words, even if they don't know you're signaling to stop or turn left or turn right, because there are a lot of people out there, again, they have no idea what you're doing, you're at least getting their attention. Again, they tend to see the motorcyclist's silhouette rather than the actual little blinker. Again, even on a day like today in this video here, you'd think signals would be super bright, but sometimes they're not. When I'm driving along and I see a big SUV and he's slowing down or whatever, and I look, sometimes it's hard to even see his blinker on. You know, it's kind of one of those things. I've tried to make it a habit for myself when I'm riding past a car at all, especially in a small town or any sort of intersection or whatever, that I automatically draw my eyes to their blinkers first. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, because I want to see if it's on. I want to see if it's on before I even get there. Even if I'm carrying on, particularly if I'm carrying on straight through and I'm not turning, I want to make sure this guy isn't going to pull the dreaded left-hand turn in front of me and kill me, right? I don't want to end up on anybody's hood. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually just wave at the driver. And I did this the other day. It's not in this footage, but I did it the other day where I saw the blinker on. The guy was already stopped waiting for me to go by, but I wanted to make 100%, like, is he just stopped because it's a sharp driveway, or is he stopped because he sees me coming? So I wave at him, he waves back. I've already kind of started reducing my speed, moving over, doing all the things I would have to do in case that, you know, like for example right here, this is going into my driveway. I'm doing all the maneuvers here because my driveway's full of beach sand. I have to come in almost straight in on it because you'll see how much I bounce around here. It's quite the terrifying ride on a sport bike, but you know, I'm getting used to it. Really, these bikes aren't really meant to be riding on those kind of surfaces. So I have to slow down a lot. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just pull right off the road, let all the trucks and everything go by, particularly tractor trailers, because I'm not going to try to stop this guy with 130 tons of freaking lumber on. You know, I'm not going to try to stop him. Even if I'm in the right, it doesn't matter. It's easy for me just to pull off, let the guy go by, give myself the time to turn in. You can't always do that, but if you can't do that, slow the guy down well in advance, especially the heavier vehicles, trucks, stuff like that. And then, of course, just the average lead foot, the guy in the F-150 that has to drive 140 everywhere because he's got to be there in 5 minutes. Give them the arm signals first while you're doing the other things. It's a nice combination. It might not work for everybody, but I've enjoyed it, and it seems to work well for me. All right, so ride safe and have yourselves a great day, eh?